We begin the Quran Daf Mesechus Bava Metzia Daf Mem Vav. We begin 2 lines down with the top of 2 lines up from the bottom of the Amud, where the Gemara brought in this teaching of Rav Papa that had said that even according to the one that holds that Mabea cannot create a chalipin, but it could be acquired through chalipin. And that the Gemara actually asks on this teaching of Rav Papa. Throughout the entire world. We're discussing today's daf we're discussing the kinya of chalipin. Chalipin is the exchange of one item for another item, not necessarily that it's worth that value. It's not dumbin. It's just exchanging one item for another one. Kinya sudar, which is a classic chalipin, which the guy gives a kerchief, and then automatically that property, that skyscraper, whatever it is, gets acquired. Chalipin mamish, which is the literally chalipin. And emat beya nasa chalipin, this concept of that there's a mandam holds that you cannot create a chalipin through a matbeya. Some other terms of concept today is that argonatro le aser, as we'll see in Ezra Neshach, that there's a value for just waiting for a guy to pay up, which essentially is what ribbis really is. That's forbidden. Most kind is the that the opinion that actually biblically money actually does acquire, but it's only rabbinically they would own. Or the other opinion, the Torah explicitly tells us that you could only acquire with mashicha and not with mois. So we're discussing in the middle of this halacha of the Gemara had said chalipin that but it couldn't make them a chalipin. That Rav Papa had said even according to the opinion that coins cannot affect chalipin, but they're considered objects and can be acquired through the kinyan of chalipin. That's what Rav Papa had said. And that the Gemara asked, and with 2 lines up at the bottom of the Amud of Memheim Beis, the Gemara asked Rav Papa from Mishnah Sheni. Mishnah says, there's a very interesting case over here. A guy is standing in his granary. Now the imbiyad mais, he doesn't have in his possession money. What does that mean? So Rashi explains the background to this in the Masechut. He doesn't have money to give to his friend, because what does he want to do? He wants to do something interesting. He wants to be mechal his meiser sheni, but he wants to be deceptive in how he redeems it. He wants to deconsecrate it through mekach memker. What does that mean through mekach memker? He wants to sell it to someone else so that he shouldn't be chayiv a chaimish, because the pasuk tells us that im yigoil ishmi meiser. If a person is redeeming his own meiser, the Torah says chamishisa yosef. He has to add on a 5th. Now that's only mi meisroi, from his own meiser. But if you buy someone else's meiser sheni and you deconsecrate it, because now the funds take it, you don't have to add on a 5th. So this guy wants to give money to his friend to buy from him his meiser sheni, so that he doesn't have to pay an added 5th in the meiser sheni deconsecration. That's what he wants to do. Aber, he doesn't have money. So what does he do? He wants to give the money to the friend to do it, but he doesn't have it. So the halacha is that he tells his friend, which Rashi points out, the guy must be a good friend. He knows that he's only doing it to get himself off the hook from the chaimish, because you could run into problems when you have someone put a property under someone else's name to get out of taxes or whatever this and that. You might run into problems. So he does like this. He says, had they paid us halalu? He says, these meiser sheni produce, I'm gifting it to you, this meiser sheni. Now, once this friend acquires it as a gift, the first guy, the original guy, he becomes a fremder. He's a foreign guy now. Now, he could redeem it without adding a 5th, because it's not his anymore. It's not me meiser. It's his friend's meiser now. Right. Oh, exactly. That's what we're getting to. Continues to give on the top of Memvav Medalef. So, then he says, okay, Harei Hain, your meiser sheni, right? It's his friends now. Your meiser sheni should be Muchulalan Amois Shieshli Babayis. It could be deconsecrated money. I have money at home. And let the meiser acquire these monies. And now the meiser will go out to be considered as chulin. That's what this guy could do. Fine. Says the Gemara, time at the imbiyad mais. So that's because, and that works because he has money, which he has in this house, which could work. But he just didn't have money to give to that guy to buy it from him, so he just gave him the produce. Okay, says the Gemara, time of the imbiyad mais. So the reason is because he doesn't have money, because you said the imbiyad mais. Now the inference is hamiyesh biyad mais, but it sounds like had he had money over there in the granary, So the Tana would never have told him to do such a thing. Rather, he would have given the money to his friend, and likni luli idach b'meshicha. The guy would have acquired the money with meshicha, uparik, and the friend would have redeemed his meiser. As the Gemara says, the hachi adav, it's really better because it doesn't look so deceptive as a way out of chaimish. Because the havalei, because the friend would have been nachri, a foreign person regarding the meiser, and we would have said mi meiser excludes when it's someone else. So it's not so deceptive. It's still your meiser, and this guy, you gave him money, and he's buying your meiser. Fine. Problem is, but if you say matbeya nikne b'chalipin, that you could acquire money through chalipin, right? You're telling me that even the one who holds that you cannot do chalipin with money, but money could be acquired through chalipin. What are you talking about? Nikne le mois laheyach. You tell me you have money at home, right? So transfer the money to that guy. Agav sudr. Like, take a kerchief, take a pen, like you do with the Rav by Chametz, and that's it. Pick up his hat, whatever, velifrik, and redeem it. You tell me Mapei is neked b'chalipin. What are you going ahead and transferring him, gifting him all your meiser sheni? It's more deceptive. Says the Gemara, no, we're talking about the Leslie Sudder. We're talking about with the guy doesn't have a kerchief. So the Gemara says, oh, okay, fine, doesn't have a kerchief, but nekninu na'alei agav karka. Why don't you transfer him the money through property? Meaning, give this guy, the one who owns the meiser, should give him property by letting him make a chazaka, and through that he'll acquire the money. When this guy takes possession of the karka, the money will be automatically acquired to him wherever they are, because the Mishnah teaches of chavav menav and kedushin, nechasim that don't have a chayis, which is like money, any movable item, are nicked with nechasim to have a chayis, b'kesef, b'shtar, b'chazaka, and this friend will say that these payers are deconsecrated on the money that I have in your house, because he acquired the funds when he took chazaka on the property, which this is better again because he's a nachri, he's a foreign person. Now Rashi just points out that this question is not asked specifically on Rav Papa. It's really in general a question on the Mishnah saying, why would the Tana say to go gift him the meiser? Why didn't you just acquire him the money through taking through karka? And when it says the less like karka, the guy who owns the meiser doesn't have property. When it says doesn't have property, he's in his warehouse. He's in the granary. So the Gemara, it's not his own. It's not his own silo. It's not his own place. He doesn't have karka. The Gemara says, come on. You tell me that a Tana is going through the effort to teach me a halacha by something so uncommon, which is we're talking about gavra artila. You're talking about a naked guy, the less level of and he doesn't own only property, doesn't have a kerchief, doesn't have a shirt to take off to give. Come on, the Gemara doesn't like that. Rather, obviously, you could infer from this that, okay, even if it's not his own gairin, but everyone has a sudr, everyone has a kerchief, everyone has a shirt. And even so, you're telling me that he has to gift him the payers. Why? Because obviously, ein mabeya nikte b'chalipin. Obviously, because you cannot acquire a coin through chalipin. Shema Mino says the Gemara, not like Rav Papa. And the Gemara says the truth is, Rav Papa hadabei. The truth is, even Rav Papa retracted from what he originally said, that although a coin cannot make chalipin, it can be acquired through chalipin. He himself retracted. Rav Papa, we find Rav Papa have a teresa alfei dinari bechazai. He had 12,000 dinarim which were owed to him in bechazai. So what did he do? He needed someone to collect it for him. Akninu l'Rav Shmuel bar Acha. He transferred ownership of the funds to Rav Shmuel bar Acha, who was going over there, so he could bring it back for him. As Rashi explains, had he not transferred the funds to him, then the one who owed it to him would never have given it to him, because if it gets lost on the road, Rav Papa would go back and claim it, say, I never got it, or it wasn't to me. So no, the ownership was given up to Rav Shmuel bar Acha. Once he gets it, it's already paid up. And he gave it. How did he transfer the funds to him? Agav asiva de beisa, through the threshold of his own house. So you see, from the fact that he had to transfer the funds through his property, obviously he couldn't just take off the kerchief of his head and be maknid to him through chalipin. So you see, even Rav Papa retracted from this. And the Gemara just ends off, ki also, when Rav Shmuel bar Acha came back with the money, so nafig la'apei atavach, he came to greet him all the way to the place of Tavach, the name of a place. He was glad that he had brought him back his money that was owed to him. And this V'chein Rashi is going back on the Machlekes Rav and Levi that we quoted on the previous daf, not on Rav Papa's part, of he was saying a second shlav, a second stage of even if a mapeya does not create chalipin, but it could be acquired through chalipin. No, on the first halacha, we had a Machlekes Rav and Levi, if you could create chalipin with money or not. Ula also says, ein mapeya nasa chalipin, you cannot create chalipin through giving the coin. Ravasi, he also says, giving someone a coin cannot effectuate a kinyan chalipin. You cannot create chalipin through a matbeya. Now, Esrei Rababal Ula. Ula is one of the opinions we just mentioned, that you cannot create chalipin with a matbeya. The Gemara asks on him for the following brisa. Brisa says, if a guy had his donkey drivers and his workers were toiv meis b'shuk, in the marketplace, they were claiming the money that he owed them, and for the meal cards that he owed them for the work that they did. So, there's a money change over there, and the employer said to him, do me a favor, tenli b'dinner mais, give me prutais in the value of a dinner. Now, I don't have this dinner on me right now, but I'll provide them what I owe them, and then I'll pay you up by a certain day. Yefei dinner v'tarisis. Now, it's the Gemara assumes what this translation of these words are, is that Yefei dinner means a dinner yafa, meaning a good dinner that could be that's used in circulation. I'll pay you back a dinner's worth, and trisis, which is a small ma'ah, a little bit extra that I'll pay you for this exchange. For money that I have in my house. So says the Brisa, okay, im yeshle mois, if he actually has money back home in his house, so that money that he's saying is going to be mutter. What the Gemara assumes right now, what that means to say is, because since he has money back home, so this is a chalipin. He's exchanging what the money changer is giving his worker for the money he has back home. Now, because of his pressing situation, so what he did is that he gave it to him cheaper, meaning he's giving him a little bit more, treats us more. Isn't that ribbis? That a guy gives you a certain amount, you give him back more? No, it says Rashi, that's not payment for waiting. The whole idea of ribbis is, you need money for 6 months, whatever, I'll charge you for that amount of time. Here it's not for amount of time because not waiting at all. He's actually paying him right away. It's like virtual money that we have these days, that things happen and you don't see any exchange of money. It's happening right away. The moment the money changer gives the money, the dinner in the guy's house is acquired to the money changer. So therefore, that's not a problem about ribbis. Okay, it says the Gemara, if you're going to think to say that you cannot go ahead and effectuate a transfer of chalipin through a matbeya. Well, first Rashi explains Vimlav Aser. He says that since those are the words, I just skipped those words. Vimlav Aser. He says now if the guy doesn't have in his house, it's forbidden, because if he doesn't have the dinner in his house, there's no chalipin. So then it's like any other sale, which he becomes obligated to him the dinner at that time. So the treases that he's adding on is amount of time that he's waiting for him to pay up. That would be a problem. But ribbis, fine, okay. But then the Gemara says, that you cannot do chalipin with a matbeya. If that's the case, even if the guy has money in his house, so then the prutis of the shulchani should not be acquired to him wherever they are, because you're telling me that a matbeya cannot create a chalipin. So if that's the case, it's only a havali hava. Essentially, it's a loan v'aser. As Rashi explains, he says, what are you talking about? It's not a loan. It's a mekach memker. It's a sale. The money changer is selling him all these prutas for the dinners I was going to pay up. But the Gemara tells us later in Samach Gimel Mabeis that a klal in ribbis is kol agar natrala. Anytime that you're charging for a wait, a delay, that's aser. And that's what would happen over here. Even if it's a sale, let's say, even if it's a mekach memker, but he's giving your workers this all these copper coins, and it's and you're telling me a matbeya, which is what these are, cannot create a chalipin automatic transfer. So I don't care if it's mekach memker or if it's a loan, it's still a loan because you're waiting for the payment. That should be aser. Obviously, matbeya could create chalipin and could be acquired through chalipin because both of them are matbeyas. The shulchani is creating the chalipin, and the balabayas coins are nikna b'chalipin. So you see, not like all these. You see, not like Ula. Ula said that matbeya cannot create chalipin, and obviously cannot be, and also we said cannot create. Or we said from a public cannot be acquired with chalipin. He must have ishtik. Ula was quiet. So Malay, Reb Abba, who had asked the question, said to Ula Dilma, maybe you could answer my question and say that ED, both the money changers coins and the coins of the employer were beproitetoishanu. They were copper coins that doesn't have yet the figure imprinted on them, like we spoke about asimon, which of the silver coins that doesn't have the figure yet. The leka alayotiva. They're not considered currency. V'id perihava, and therefore these coins are considered merchandise. And therefore they can be acquired with chalipin. Maybe that's the pshat. Amalei, so Ula said to him, in yes. Oh, but Sabasa is only a problem. Yeah, no, but Sabasa is only a problem when it's a loan. Here it was a purchase. Yeah, it's a chalipin, exactly. That's exactly the point. Sabasa is not a problem. It's not waiting. So he says, yeah, yes, exactly like you're saying, you're answering very well. And he says, Dekanami the he says a precise reading indicates this because the wording was Yefei dinner vitresis. That sounds like I'm going to give you from these prototypes, these non-coins of coins in my house. That's Yafa dinner, meaning it's worth a dinner vitresis. But like it doesn't say dinner Yafa vitresis. You thought, as Rashi explains, that meant, a silver dinner that's good and minted. No, it's Yafei dinner vitresis. It's worth that amount. Mamina, that we're talking about prototypes that are not minted. It's worth that amount. Yeah, because you could use it. People will take it. It's because it's merchandise. It's like barter. You could use it to get a burger from the store. You know what I'm saying? But that's why the chalipin worked because it's peri, not because it's mabeh. It's not mabeh. That's one approach. Another approach, says the Gemara, that actually Rav Ashi says lo la'ilam bedamim ubepretes. The truth is that we're talking about that it's actually the monetary value emipretis, meaning, like you said, because you said yefei dinner, that it's only worth that amount, but it was with. It's not because like you wanted to tell me that it's going to be acquired with chalipin. No, it doesn't have to be. Even if he stipulated with him that it should be a monetary payment, it's really the Gemara is really addressing your question. That okay, so we all answered, we all jumped in, we said, no, it's chalipin, so there's no problem about ribis. On that says no, even if it was a monetary payment, it's not ribis of agar naturale, because even alone, even the islay, since the guy has these prototypes in his house, it would be permitted to him to give more. Why? Isn't that ribis? No, because nasa ka'imr, it's like the halacha that we already brought this on the Mem Daled. Helveini achayav beni, lend me money until my son comes, or until I find the key. That's not going to be a problem, which actually Taisus discusses. The Mascha Nasa, he says, whoa, although permitted by Sabasa for achayav beni, but here we're talking about Sabas Asayim, we're giving more, that should be forbidden, that should be Ribis Gomer. So it says, no, but here, he's not giving the matbeya itself that he took. He's giving a different type. And therefore it's similar to Mekach HaMemker. And so therefore Tais has a whole different explanation. He says, it's like the case of Mutter Sabasa through Alva when you say Achiyav B'ni, because Sabasa is only Ribis D'Rabbanan. Here also, since it's Mekach HaMemker, even Sabasa San would be permitted when you say Achiyav B'ni. Okay, Al-Kapan, either way, the Gemara is just trying to say, even without Chalipin, even if it was like waiting for the guy to pay, it's still going to work because it's like Achiyav B'ni, but that's not a problem about Sabasa like you had asked. Okay. Says Gemara Tashma, but the Gemara continues trying to bring a raya, not like Ula, who says that you cannot effectuate a Chalipin with a Matbeya. From the Mishnah, Mesechtes Kedushin of Chav Ches, Mishnah says, and it's going to be, we're going to have to translate what these words are. But the Mishnah says like this: Kalanasa damim ba'acher. Whatever is made into money for something else. So the Gemara assumes what it means to say is whatever normally is given as money for something else. What's that? A matbeya. Matbeya is usually that which is given, because really money is an invention. It's money you could pay with whatever it is, whatever you designate. So what's that was usually made into monetary payment for something else? It's matbeyas. Okay. So the Mishnah tells us that if the owner gives it in the medium of chalipin, let's say he's exchanging the money for an ox or for a cow, says the Mishnah like this: Kiven shezachazeh, once the owner of the cow does meshicha on the matbeya, on the coin, nischayev zeh, so the owner of the coin becomes liable for whatever einzin now developed the chalipin in the exchange from this point onwards. Meaning, if the ox dies, even though he never got the delivery of the ox, it died for him. Because although he didn't do meshicha on the ox, but the guy already took the money. And doing that chalipin, it's automatically yours. And if it dies, it's your loss. Now, says the Gemara, wait a second. As we explained already from Rashi, the Gemara now spells it out. When you're saying whatever is made into money for something else, what is that? That's a matbeya. Shmamina, what do you see from this Mishnah? Matbeya nasa chalipin. You see the kinyan is finished once the guy took the money. Now it's already automatically that guy's cow, and if it dies, it's your loss. That's chalipin. And you see that the matbeya is creating chalipin. I'm going to read this says, no, it's not true. But this is what you have to read the Mishnah differently. As you continue Tamid Beis. Kol hanishum damim ba'acher. What does that mean? Whatever is evaluated as money for something else? Meaning whatever you normally evaluate, when you give it as monetary payment for something else, what is it? What do you have to evaluate when you want to use as monetary payment? Kol hanasa dam ba'acher means doesn't mean that's usually made because it's made like that. You have to make it. You have to evaluate it. That's metaltalin. If someone wants to give us monetary payment for something else, look, everyone first you evaluate. You want to pay me with this Parker pen? Well, how much is it worth? Oh, the Parker pen's worth $3.50. Oh, okay, great. Now that you could pay me $3.50, but if you took out $3 bills and 50 cents, we wouldn't have to evaluate. That's where we're saying that if he gives it as the medium of chalipin, okay, kimin shezachazeh. Once this guy does meshich on it, nischayev zeh b'chalipin. The other guy becomes obligated in whatever the exchange item was. Which what we're telling you is that metaltlin and peri could create chalipin. That's the chiddush of that halacha, the Mishnah Kedushin, that it doesn't have to be a kli. Because what? That's what I'm saying. The other thing is being acquired. No, the end. Chayiv zeh b'chalipin means to say that the other guy, he becomes liable for whatever einsim happened to it. Meaning, like, exactly, because he's cleaning it. And the chiddush doesn't have to be a kli, because although the pasuk says shalav ishnole, he took of a shoe, that's lav davka. Because from the words l'kaim kol davar, the Gemara later on Daf Mem Zayin, next daf, darshins, yeah, you could use anything for the chalipin. So the Gemara says actually hachanam mistabra. It's logical the way we rejected the raya. It's logical that we're not really talking about a matbeya. We thought kalanastam ba'acha was a coin. No, it's actually logical the way we're rejecting. Because Mektani say for the end of this, Mishnah says, Ketzad. Oh, what does this mean? How does this work? The Mishnah said, that if you're exchanging an ox for a cow, or chamar b'shar, or a donkey for an ox, oh, that's chalipin. So Shema, obviously we're not talking about matbeyas, we're not talking about coins. We're talking about transferring one thing for another thing. Okay, but now the Gemara wants to know the Gemara's Havamina. Well, according to what you originally thought, you thought you're being a raya, not like Ula, you're proving that you see matbeya could create a chalipin. So you thought that what's kalanasidam ba'acha was matbeya. So the Gemara says, how would you read the Mishnah then? My ketzad. What does it mean ketzad then? The Mishnah is saying a sharfa chamar. That's not an illustration of a matbeya. The Gemara says no hachima. What the Mishnah would have been saying was uperi nami. And that all metatlin, even if it's not a kli, also have the chalipin. It could also do chalipin, not just a matbeya. Ketzad on that, the Mishnah would be illustrating how so. If you exchange an ox for a cow, or chamar b'shar, or a donkey for an ox, etc. And as Rashi explains in the Masal Hochikama, it says the way you would read the Mishnah would be kol hanasadam ba'achar, which is what? A matbeya, just what the Gemara's Havmina was. If you give it as a medium of chalipin, once the guy is zeicha on the money, so the other guy becomes liable for whatever the exchange was. And then the Mishnah says, Ketzad chalipin. And what is chalipin? For example, if you exchange an ox for a cow, which is just teaching you the primary halacha of chalipin, and parenthetically what the Sefer is teaching is also that a peri could do chalipin. That's what the Mishnah would have been interpreted as. Now the Gemara says, okay, Hanichel Rav Sheshes. This is all very well according to Rav Sheshes. In other words, as Rashi explains the Gemara's question, whether according to what we had thought in the Havamina, what we had originally thought, and whether according to what Rav Yehuda answered and he clarified that the Sefer, the Mishnah, is coming to tell us that, yeah, Peri could do Chalipin, and it doesn't have to be a Kli. Now, there's a Machlekes of Nachman Rav Sheshes later on in Daf Mem Zayin, next Daf, and therefore the Gemara explains that what we're saying makes sense according to Rav Sheshes. Because Dama, he says Peri Avde Chalipin. He says that you could do Chalipin with a non-Kli, what we call a Peri. That's just the terminology that we say. So that makes sense. The Mishnah is talking about a Peri could do Chalipin. El Rav Nachman, but according to Rav Nachman, they say Kli in, only a vessel. Ava Peri lo Avde Chalipin, but you cannot do Chalipin with a non-Kli. So my Ketzad. What's Ketzad? Ketzad is telling us that you could do Chalipin with a non-Kli, which is an animal. How does that make sense according to Rav Nachman? So the Gemara says that's not difficult. The Gemara is going to come up with a very interesting interpretation for Rav Nachman. This is what the Mishnah is saying. Yesh damim, you could have a monetary payment, shehein kichalipin, that's like a kinyav chalipin. That's what the Ketzad is going on. So as Rashi explains, the Reish in the Sefer is actually one case, and it's teaching us you could have a monetary payment where the mois will be kindness without meshicha of the purchased item, just like chalipin of a kerchief works. Interesting. I thought mois is not kindness. You're right, it's usually not, but that's what the Mishnah Kedushin is illustrating, that you could have such a case. How so? That's what the Mishnah is explaining. Hichlev demei shur b'para. When we said you're exchanging a shur for a para, we don't really mean an ox for a cow. We do, but there's a layer over here. If you exchange the value of an ox for a cow, or the value of a donkey for an ox. What is this talking about? So Rashi Divrei Masel Ketzad explains. He says that if a guy sold someone an ox for a certain amount of money, okay, the buyer goes and does Mashicha on the shur. Once he does Mashicha on the shur, he owes the seller a certain amount of money. Then the buyer says to the seller, says, interesting, I have a cow that I have that I want to use to pay you for the ox that I bought from you. And they agree, and they accept that that's what they're going to do. That moment, the owner of the cow becomes obligated to give him the cow, and neither one of them could back out. Which is interesting. Usually just verbal agreement, you could back out. We'll talk about whatever if there's a chamanah, please. Oh, so that's what we're saying. But so when we're saying,
I'm saying you can't back out even.
No, but what does that have to do with the cow? He owes him money, but what does that have to do with the cow? He owes him money for the shur. That he can't back out of. But what does that have to do with the cow? That's what we're saying. Kalanazadam ba'achar, which we explain means whatever is evaluated in money with something else. All movable items that a person evaluates to his friend, and he's giving him the evaluated value because of something else that the buyer had, the moment that the first buyer merits in the movable items of the first one that he does Mashicha on, even if it's through the medium of damim, of a monetary payment, with the intention of transferring to him his object with a monetary value, the second buyer, which is really the seller, becomes liable in all the eintzim of the exchange because his money acquired for him all the eintzim of the chalipin. So, as Rashi explains, the word, and this is in bold in the Remaschel, Ketzad, when the Mishnah was saying, how is this? Hechlev demei shur b'par, which means to say is like this. If he evaluated his ox for a monetary price, on the condition that he's going to give him the cow for those monies, then he acquires the cow automatically, like chalipin. So the Gemara says, well, my time with Rav Nachman. What's the reason of Nachman that he's saying that, such a case of a monetary payment will acquire, but we learned in our Mishnah that money doesn't acquire. Our kesef and the kindness is up. Why are these monies that's owed is going to automatically acquire for him this cow that he's getting from the first buyer? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you why. It's a very interesting. What? What? It's not. It's not barter. He owes him. No, but that's not what they did. He bought from him an ox. He owes him money. And he says, okay. Yes, I'm saying so. What? So what's so now that is that automatic? This that he wants to. He's selling him. He's selling him. He's selling to the seller this cow. That's with money that he's buying it. Now, generally, money doesn't acquire things. Here, the money will acquire it. You can't back out. It's already a done deal. Why? Why is that money that he owes him affecting the kinyan on the cow that he's selling to his seller? So that's what the Gemara's question is. The Gemara is an interesting answer. No, but we're talking about the cow now. That sale was done. Now he wants to pay him and at the same time sell him his cow. They're saying the money that's owed, he's selling him the cow. That's a done deal.
So he changed his mind. So he said, instead of giving you $100 for the ox, I'll give you a cow.
You could say that, but essentially he's selling him.
So it started out with money, and then he said, "I'll give you the cow." And from that moment that they agree,
But not really, because he's really selling him for the money that he owes him. Yeah, we're going to say chiddush in Mo's kindness. In Mo's kindness, we're going to say chiddush. Although Mo usually doesn't acquire, here the money will acquire. So that's the Gemara saying why. What's the reason? So there's a very important because we'll see in the next daf as a machlekes if Mo's are kindness minatayr or not. So the Gemara is explaining to Rav Nachman Sabla Rabbi Yechon. He holds like Rabbi Yechon on the Amad that he says on the next daf Mem Zayin Abayz that Dvar Torah from biblical law Mo is kindness. Money really does acquire, and we learn it out from when you're kind of from hektish. The Torah says, if you give money to hektish, you automatically acquire. Kesef is a kinyan minatayr. Now the question is, Mema Amar Meshicha kaina. So why did they say that only Meshicha could acquire, but not, meaning when you pull the product, but not the payment of the money? Like we said, Azav kindness a kesef, but a kesef was not kind of the Zav. That's a gezerah. Rabbinic decree. What's the decree? Because Shema, you might have the following problem. What happens is a guy comes to the store and he pays for the product. Now, sometimes the product is not ready for pickup, so he's going to leave the product in the house of the seller for a long period of time. What's going to happen is there's going to be a fire in the neighborhood of the seller, and the seller's not going to go through the effort to save it, because he'll just tell him, Nisrifu chitecha ba'aliyah, your wheat got burnt in my attic, because it's your wheat. You already acquired it with the money that you paid me. So therefore, no. Chazal made it that it's still in the possession of the seller, so that he could back out if he wants to. And the reason for that is because if the price would go up, the seller would want to back out so that he gets the profit. So that it's like his, and he'll go through the effort to save it. And we'll see that in the next step. That's the reason Rabbi Yechanan why he says the mois is not kindness. Now, since this whole halacha of mois not being kindness is only rabbinic injunction, now there's a well-known Talmudic dictum, milsa de shchicha, that it's only by something that's common, let's say by a common sale, that's where Gaza B'Rabban. That's where the rabbinic decrees extend to. The milsa de shchicha, by something that's not common, a sale that's not common like this, which is a very interesting sale, because essentially he's evaluating the money of one metaltalin for another metaltalin. It's not barter, it's a sale. Like Gaza B'Rabbanan. Rabbanan did not make a takana that it should only be with Mashiach. And that's why it's going to work. And that's the interpretation of our Mishnah in Kedushin, the Kolanasadam Ba'achar, that what it really means to say is, and this is what we have to say for Rav Nachman, who doesn't hold that you could explain like Rav Sheshes, that it was regarding Peri, because he holds that Peri is not Kainim B'Chalipin, it's actually Damim. But wait a second, how does Damim work? I thought Damim, first of all, it says Shar B'Para. It says no, it means Dmei Shar B'Para. Well, I thought Ma is not kindness. Ma is not kindness usual, in the usual case. An unusual case, you actually could have Ma'is kindness. And therefore the Ma'is of the Shar that's owed could acquire the Para in such a case. That's the Gemara's interpretation for Rav Nachman. Now the Gemara just ties it back. Well, there's Shlakish, according to Shlakish, that he says, the other pin, not Rabbi Yechanan. He says on Daf Mem Zayin Abayz that Meshicha Mufadeshus Minat Torah, that actually biblically you need to do Meshicha, and biblically Mois are not kindness, so obviously you wouldn't be able to say what you just said. You cannot differentiate between the common sale and the uncommon sale, because it doesn't make a difference. Mois is not kindness. It wouldn't work even in the Mechad Leishchicha. So according to Rish Lakish, It would make sense if you hold like Rav Sheshes that says that you could do chalipin with peri. So Mataris like Rav Sheshes, he would explain our Mishnah where Rav Yehuda explained it, that when they say kol hanasa dam ba'acher, means whatever is evaluated for monetary value for something else. For example, metalton and peri, which a person would normally evaluate when he gives it as monetary payment for something else. Where you do it chalipin, yeah, that's when when this guy would be zeicha, the other guy will automatically be chayiv in the eintzin of the other thing. But at least like Rav Nachman, but Rabbi Shloimy will hold like Rav Nachman. Doma perila of the chalipin, that you cannot do chalipin with a non-kli because it needs to be a kli. Now, umadbeya, and further along, this is where you just keep in mind all the different opinions. A madbeya, through a monetary payment, obviously according to Rish Lakish, loy kani, you wouldn't be able to acquire, because again he holds that madbeya is not kind at all on the biblical level. So you wouldn't be able to say like Rav Nachman had answered, that he said, oh, there is a damim that is like chalipin, because according to Rish Lakish Midiraisa, he learns that mois and not kindness, even by an uncommon sale. So how is he going to explain the Mishnah Kedushin of swapping an ox for a cow? But it doesn't make sense not in chalipin, and it doesn't make sense not with damim, because it can't be chalipin because they're not kalim, and it can't be with damim because he holds mois not kindness. So Gemara says you're right. So you have to say that he would hold like Rav Sheshes that you could do chalipin with a peri, not like Rav Nachman, and that would be the interpretation of Mishnah Mesechtes Kedushin, that it's a chalipin with animals, with peri. It's just a regular chalipin. The Gemara continues to ask on Ulam. It's now from our Mishnah. Again, Ula said that you cannot do chalipin with a madbeya. Our Mishnah said, all movable items, if two people are exchanging objects, both items are acquired when either one of them performs mishicha. Rish Lakish had said in the interpretation of what's the Mishnah adding on that it didn't say up until now, even if one purse of money for another purse of money. Now, obviously, we're talking about chalipin, because if it was through the medium of damim, we know mois and akaina. So obviously, matbeya could create chalipin and could be acquired through chalipin. So you see, not like ula. So that's the Gemara and the Tirgum of Acha interpreted when both of these purses of monies are actually invalid currency, and therefore it's just like all other metaltalin. The kiss is kind, but what's the kinyan on the monies? It sounds like that you're kind of the monies also. You don't want to say agav. I hear you have to know if what it means, if it's the purse itself. But the Gemara says bediner anka va'anigra. We're talking about where one guy is swapping a purse full of anikoin dinarim, for the other guy is swapping his dinar anigra. What is that? So the Gemara explains. Echad, one of them is shapaslasi malchus. One of them is that the king decreed we're not using this currency anymore. But people still on the black market, they still use that currency. The echad shapaslasi medina, the other one is the exact opposite. People in the country, they hate this currency. They're not using it anymore. But the king didn't command. And they do use it in some of the other countries of the king. So that's what you're exchanging. So they're not really tiva, they're peri, and that's why it's going to work. Now, it's tricha, why do we have to say these two different cases? Because Yeshmin and Paslas Malchus, had we only said that the government disqualified it, I would say Mishum Delay Sagi Klal, because it's not in circulation at all. Because the government said it's disqualified. Of Paslas Medina, but when the people invalidate it. But the Sagili Medina Achita, but where it's used in other countries, Ema would say Akati Matbeya, who would still consider as Matbeya, and therefore the Ema Beya Niknim Chalipin, and therefore you cannot acquire it with Chalipin. That's just saying that no, you could acquire it with Chalipin. And the other way too, V'yashmin Paslas Medina, had we only said the case of when the country disqualifies it, because no one's using it, not in private, not in public, because no one wants to use it anymore. But regarding when the government invalidates the Sagli B'tzina, where at least people are using it discreetly on the black market, I'd say it's still in Matbei, never cannot be acquired with Chalipin. But we have to say it that no, both cases, but Al Kapanim, it's not a difficulty on Ula, because this case of Metatlin, Koin Zazeh, which Rish Lakish said as Kism Elamais, but Kism Elamais are not Matbeyas, they're considered as Peri because they're not regular currency, and therefore Chalipin is going to work, but I could still hold like Ula, that if it was a real Matbeya, you wouldn't be able to do Chalipin with it, and you wouldn't be able to be kinda the Matbeya through a Chalipin. Thank you to any time for hosting us.